So good afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Saranya Sriram. So I think we'll probably wait for just a minute for others to get in before we start. Should be good? So let's do justice to the session. I think we'll talk about MVC3 features, capabilities from what we can do out of Visual Studio 2010, what is MVC and what is the roadmap ahead, and probably build up a sample at the end of the day. So I think the sample which we decided to showcase, and if you probably knew, this webcams is happening in multiple cities over some period of time as well. So we thought cricket might be an in thing in India. So we'll try to build a cricket site using MVC3 and see how we can visualize some of the, say, scores, team players, or certain components of IPL through this application. Sounds interesting? Okay, so let's just start right away. I think we've waited enough. So welcome to the second session post lunch. Chai is also over, so I presume all of you are fresh here and all geared up to get something out of this session. This session is on MVC3 with Visual Studio. I'm Saranya Sriram, part of the Developer Evangelism Group at Microsoft. That's my email ID as well. So first and foremost, grassroots level, starting as a developer, how do I get hands-on into MVC3? So we'll just take one step backwards. Let's just see how to set up the system before we see what are the components of MVC3. This we thought is primarily important, and actually just if you see this slide has been pasted, it is a made up slide. Since we got this question from multiple group of audiences as to what is the easiest way to jump and get started with web development, be it MVC3 or web forms, etc. So have you heard of the web platform installer? Yes, most of you? Okay, it's a thin client, single time download really, but then every time it goes and updates to see what is the latest available from the Microsoft world for the web. So then it will give you, so if you want to just quickly take a look at web platform installer, once you've installed it, you will get this thin client wherein you can go and say, hey, I want to set up my web form system or set up my MVC system. And so it downloads all the associated or other components that are required. For example, if you want to set up an MVC component in your system, it will download Visual Studio Express editions because it works fine, SQL Server Express, IS Express, things like that, so that it basically sets up your system with one click. So that's something very useful. I'm not going to wait for it to take the update and download the latest version of what is not missing in my system. So that is said, the easiest way is to use web platform installer, and the latest version of MVC is MVC3. So this was the round trip which got the MVC3 tools update, which got released like a month and a half back, April 11, 12, 13 in the Mix conference. And so this brought in a lot of Visual Studio tooling support for MVC3. But just stay on with us. We're just giving you a quick round trip before we actually dwell deep into what each of these components are and how we build up the system. To get the system things right and the history in place, MVC was first released in 2009, MVC1. It was very similar to the Java world of model view controller, and we actually built it as a wrapper over the .NET platform. So it was actually built over, I think Scott Guthrie actually built the basic engine when he was flying from Seattle to LA or something. A 2-hour flight is when he actually built that engine, and that got into, a major product later on. So trivia apart, MVC2 brought in multiple features, say helpers. It brought in things wherein coding can be made easier, tighter integration. So you could have view data per se to transform. Basically, if you want cookies or session states to move from multiple pages or screens, you can do all that also in MVC2. So MVC3 is more of a, I wouldn't call paradigm change, but MVC3 brought a whole new concept called Razor. Have you heard of that? Any of you? How many of you have heard of Razor? Okay, I just see a handful. Okay, that's fine. So we will talk about that also, and we will say what is the value add of Razor, etc. So primarily, just if you want to see the history of the round trip, it has been now MVC3 tools update is kind of I wouldn't call enterprise version for web development, but a very stable version for web developers to build serious applications on Microsoft MVC platform. So this being said, what is new with ASP.NET MVC3? Whole bunch of things that you see on the screen. Razor View Engine, something we'll talk today. What will we talk today in this thing? We talk things about multiple view engine supports. Primarily to say, if you are traditional web developers who develop with ASPX pages, can you integrate that into MVC, which you have probably done with MVC2 versions or before. Razor is a new support. You can build your own view engine and you can plug it there. Custom view engine can be done. So that extensible component is available there. Validation improvements, dynamic view bag. We'll talk about how view bag has got an edge over the view data. Then basically Visual Studio tooling supports and enhancements, global filters, etc. So first, I think we'll start at the very beginning as to understand what really is the model view controller. So if you see this picture, I'm just going to take a minute or two to ramp up on MVC before moving to MVC3 components. So MVC is an architectural programming pattern which says that let's separate these concerns, which is the database tier which you will develop in your code in an entire architecture, can be completely isolated and be called something called the model. So model has the tight integration with data or the database, and it pulls out whatever data it wants and creates a repository, as Harish might have mentioned in the previous session, into the ways of consolidating this data. Alright, so that's your model. Have your data in place and you have access to access this data on the code. So if you want to write wrapper classes in terms of entity, once you have you can use entity framework if you want to make it easier, so that then you have classes for each of these databases, components and tables, which you can then have handlers to do the CRUD operations. Alright, so you basically create a model. The controller is the king, that's the heart of an MVC architecture, which is where you will have your HTTP URI always to a controller. So the entry point of an MVC architecture will be one controller, the default controller which can be set in your project. Usually the default controller which is mentioned is always an index dot whatever, that's your controller default page which will be hit, but that's completely customizable. So what does the controller do? It will go and tightly integrate it with the model to pull in whatever is the action required, and it will present it in the form of views. So these are the three separation of concerns. Your model has the data, your views has just the presentation UI. That's where the Razor comes into picture, because the Razor is completely an interpreted language which is just focused upon presentation. So if you choose to use a very lightweight component such as Razor for UI, then your system is progressively faster in terms of performance. Also gives you a much cleaner markup for SEO optimizations and things like that. So view is one part. The controller on the top basically routes whatever you want as the controller is made of certain components called action items. So you basically ask the controller, hey, I want this action to be performed, hey, I want this thing to be done. The minute you ask on an HTTP URI something to be done, it goes to the model, gets whatever data required, and it goes and calls the associated view. So this is how an MVC works, right? Why is it useful and important? Primarily because they've realized that one, it's very easy web-based, embrace the web kind of coding for developers. Normal MVC developers will see that it's so much faster and easier to get ramped up, and so many components are already built in MVC for you to take advantage of. Runs over ASP.NET, extensible, testable, etc. So let's quickly go and start building up an MVC program and see how it looks like. So I'm using Visual Studio 2010 Ultimate. Works well with Express, as I said. So I'm going to go and say create a new project. In the web, after I installed the MVC tools update, which was on April, say 11, 12, 13, I now have a template which says that ASP.NET MVC3 web application. All right. So I can go and create one of that. With again the latest tools update, this is what I get, extra things that I can create. I can create an empty project, I can create an internet or an intranet application. When I say I create an internet application, it's basically your membership logins. It tries to give you that login authentication system mapped for you. If it's an intranet, it will basically give you forms based authentication. So that's the difference. If you create an internet application, there are options to say ASPX, Razor, currently you have these two. If you as a developer wants to plug in a different view engine, you can go ahead and do that also. So Razor is what I'm going to select for now, and then we'll see what it is really about. So when I go ahead and create the project, just as a normal web application, the look and feel of it, it's going to give you a templated MVC3 project. Let's go build it to see how familiar it is to whatever project that we have already used to developing with web forms. So so this is something similar what you would typically get when you do file new ASPX page and then build it with controls. You have a logon control, you have multiple tabs, you have something. Point to note on top, you'll be confused which page is being called initially, all right, because MVC goes completely by the URL routing mechanism. So every URL is a route to a controller, really. So if you see our project here, let's close this and take a look at the project file. There is something called the models, which has models, account model. This will get the database components for the login controls. It has something called a controller, all right. And there are two controllers, account controller and the home controller, and there are multiple. There's a folder called views which will do the display. If you also see, for an account controller, there's a mapping folder called account, same nomenclature. For a home controller, there's a mapping called home. So typically, if I want to create a new controller here, and if I want to associate a view to this controller, I have to just create a folder of that view. So the routing engine maps to a particular controller and goes to the folder with the same name. So that's how the engine works. This being said, let's first go to the global.ascx. And here, this is your global.ascx file, which you are all familiar with, right? There's something called register routes here. So if you go to this register routes, these are all the routes you can manually go and say register whenever you want an HTTP endpoint to come. And there's something called the default route, in which case, when I say if I don't mention anything, use a controller called home and an action called index. So that's what has been specified in my default route in global.ascx.cx. So if you go back and see the code, controller.home is the home controller. In this home controller, if we open this up, you will see an action called index. I said a controller is made up of multiple actions. Actions for layman, think multiple functions. You're trying to access a particular function or particular action. Response could be a view. Response could be a create operation on the database. Response could be return JSON. Response could be multiple. Keeping it simple, response is a view. So it then wants to go to a view under the home controller, all right, and an index. So same name as the function name or the action name. So the action is index. Go to a file called index. Also, if you see the extension of this file is interesting. Can you actually see this? Is it visible to the last rows? Okay. The extension is CS_HTML. So that's your Razor view. Razor's extensions are, if you're writing a C# code, it's CS_HTML, otherwise it's VB_HTML. So you can, that's one thing to note. So if you go and open this index, it basically returns the page which is displayed in the home page. So this is how the routing happens. Are you all with me? Can we go along? Okay. So it's very simple, straightforward. Just go to the controller, go to that action. If no action is specified, you know that the global.ascx is saying the default action has to be home. If you specify an action, meaning in your URI, something localhost something, whack, you give a controller name /action name, it will go to that controller and find a function or an action which is mentioned in the URI. So it goes to that action, and in that action it gets all the model data, whatever it needs to do from that action method. Finally, it goes to the view. How does it understand the view? Same name as the controller name, as the folder name. It just goes inside, tries to find a CS_HTML. Because we are writing a Razor code, it finds a CS_HTML file of that action or the function type, and then goes and just displays that thing. So this is what a basic MVC program is routed and manipulated. Now just a couple of things about Razor here before we go back to the presentation. I just thought it will be interesting. There is some extra files under shared folder. So whatever is under shared can be called by controllers across. Otherwise, it's mapped tightly to the controller with respect to whatever is the folder within the controller. So example, layout.cshtml is like your master page in your web forms. And it is placed under shared because all the CSHTML files will have to inherit from this master page, right? So in this master page, if you see, there are multiple components written. You have the title, then you have partial rendering of HTML, then you have some links, tabs on the top. You would have seen a tab which said home, about, things like that. So you have action links to that. This HTML.action link will primarily go display this, go to this controller and go to this action method. Go to this action method in this controller. So because it's the home controller in that index action. So that's just the syntax of your action link. So finally, there is this component called render body, which is your content placeholder, where you can go and fill in your multiple place. So this is your CSHTML file. Now let's go back to your index.cshtml and take a look about what Razor can do, what is Razor. But before that, I'm just going back to my slide and just quickly go through some of the things that we saw and what we'll be seeing next. So upgrading, there is a third party non-Microsoft tool which is an ASP.NET MVC3 application upgrader, which will try to upgrade your MVC2 app to an MVC3 app in case you are interested. This multiple view engine support, we said that currently you have Razor and ASPX which you can select when you're creating a project, or you can add your view engine by directly going to application_start and you go ahead and add your, you write the code for the view engine and add that factory method there. So now moving on to the view part, the Razor engine. What really is Razor engine? Razor is basically a DLL file. So system.mvc, web.mvc.razor.dll is that file. So basically you have to just go and bin deploy, or as someone said, you just deploy that DLL file and then your application should be compliant with Razor. What does it give as an output? It helps you to write faster, cleaner and more concise markup based on existing languages, as we said, C# or VB.NET. Now currently with the tools update, with Visual Studio, you have IntelliSense for Razor, which was very useful because about 7-8 months back, this was a major pain point. With Microsoft developers, we are so used to IntelliSense, no? We keep using IntelliSense always. So that's something which has come up, code colorization, unit testing, etc. So comparison between a web form and Razor. So only thing actually if you need to understand Razor is one symbol, which is the @ symbol. If you are in doubt, use @ symbol, simple. That's the mantra if you see. So if you want to enter a code block, start with @ the interpreter will understand, try to manipulate and then get you whatever is. So why is it so much easier? If you see the number of transitions, before you had to do that percentage between every server code that you write, and you see that you have to clearly segregate your server code and your markup, and then it makes so much more lesser transitions that you see. You want to see some of it in action now before we see the slides. So let's open this up. Let me just delete this right here, and let's write some Razor code. So I'm just writing @ I said if you want to use any components, you just use so I can write datetime.now, and then if I build this application and run this here, I should be able to get the current time and date, right? This is one component. Now I want to say this is my email ID is looking very bad. So there is an @ here, right? What do you think will happen? Will it throw me an error searching for some server code, or will it be able to understand that it's an email ID and display it? We want this to get displayed, right? So what do you think the Razor should ideally do? It should understand and display. You think it will do that? Wow. So I don't need to do a session, you all know Razor. So that's what it really does, it is very intuitive, there are certain inbuilt logic. So let's extrapolate this to multiple more level. Let's write something more. My Twitter handler is, so now does it understand my Twitter handle? Do you think it should? So it's going to throw an error. So wow, I think one of you should just come here and do it. So how do I resolve this? What do you think I should? Very intuitively. How do you escape it? So double at. Someone said double at. Who said double at here? I think one of you said double at, right? You can take this. I have lots of it. I think all of you will get one at the end of the day, so don't feel bad. And someone here also said, if I'm right. You said? Okay, so you basically do double at. Display it displays. So I said at is the only thing you need to remember. If you want to write a code block here, you can just write at and then code block. So it automatically closes it for me. So this is your code function. If you want to write comments, you just have to write, pretty intuitive, at and star at. So that's your comment which is inside. So if you see, this is the basic Razor syntax. You can do a bunch of other things. Currently with Razor there are something called helpers. So you can go and either develop your own helper and then use it. For example, many of you will have questions as to, this looks interesting, but can it actually match web forms? I want to use a tree view, I want to do grid view, those direct questions, radio buttons and all. So how do you do it? It looks like just a presentation page, right? So answer to this is helpers. We'll see it as we go along also, but I just thought I'll mention it here to say that you can develop your own helper, which means you'll be writing tons of these CSHTML lines, and then you can put it up as a CSHTML file which people can use it in their code. Let's use one of these helpers like this. So I'm going to go and add a helper here. So I'm adding something called a library package. So I can go to the online and search for library packages which are available. Hopefully I have the internet and it should be able to retrieve the library package. Once you have, so let's go and search for the Twitter handle. So once I download this library package and install it, say if a Twitter helper say, I'm going ahead and installing this, it basically installs or it basically downloads, so it's done. Under the app code, if you see, it gives you a CSHTML file. That's all it does. And under the packages.config, it will say, hey, I've installed this package or I've downloaded this package. So if you open this, there will be this Twitter helper package which has been mentioned. But once it is there in this, I can use it in my code, right? So how do I again use any helper or any components? Basically everything is helper. There's no concept of server controls really, but any component that I want to visualize or develop, basically if I want to use a server based or server side thing, I use at, right? So I just write at. Now there's something, this Twitter goodies, I want to use this helper. So I can just write IntelliSense comes. Previously we had to remember this, try it, iterate, etc. I can go out and say multiple things. So I say tweet button, and now when I build and run this, by the way, since your view is completely segregated and Razor is an interpreter, you don't need to build. So if you see, I can just keep saving and refreshing, it would work also. So there is this Twitter handle, it's still executing. I should be able to get a Twitter handle here. So while that is happening, let's add some more. Let me add, let's add a profile of mine. So here, let's add some search parameters. Let's see. So these are all, you can just go and see what are the various available components. And then here, let me search on webcams. I I think I might need to put a hash here or not. So this has come. When I refresh this, I should be able to see certain Twitter components which I've added. It's actually so easy to add, That's the ease of Razor really. If you are an everyday web agency, web developers who wants to, quickly develop something, have these social integrations, a lot of them are available out of the box. A lot of them can be developed by you also, but it makes it so much faster. If you go back and see view source, you'll see much cleaner markup as well. So in like matter of minutes on stage, I've actually integrated my Facebook profile and my webcams also. So because of the internet connection, it's just taking some time. My profile has got updated, but the other things will also come up soon. So it's still running. While that is happening, let's go back and ignore. You got a brief idea of Razor here? Yes? So you see it's so much easier, lesser transitions between your web forms versus Razor. See, we saw about the master pages wherein you can directly use master pages as layouts.cshtml, and then in the render section, whatever is there, that's your placeholder. So basically you will use the render body, that's the keyword, or the render section to display that part of it in multiple pages wherever you want to fit it in, basically like your content placeholders. So then you also have a tool, Webforms to Razor, in case you are interested in. Again, it's an open source Razor converter which will convert your ASPX pages to Razor pages. Not tried and tested by Microsoft, so just keep it that, but it's said to be pretty decent converting tool. Of course, Telerik, most of you would have heard of it, so very reliable as well. So next, let's go and continue our page what we are trying to build, right? So let's go back to this. By now, I hope that our profile has been loaded and webcam's search parameters have also been loaded. So I have this done on my Twitter page. Stopping here and continuing to build our MVC3 application. So till now, what have we seen? We've just understood what is MVC3, and we've spent a little extra time on Razor because it's totally new. We've said that @ is our mantra word, and which just helps us to build views like this. And we've just seen about certain helpers which are available right outside of the box and which you can directly integrate. Now what are we going to do? Let's first go and build, I said at the beginning of today's session, let's try to build a IPL scores display kind of a thing. So for that we need to connect to a database. In the next session, Harish will talk about code first development, wherein you'll write your code and database gets developed on the fly. This is the traditional way of coding which we've done always, wherein we have a database in place, so that's done, and we will use our models to link to that database so that it can be pulled in out from the controller and displayed using the views. Okay, so firstly, add a new item in the model, go to the data tab, and I'm going to go and add an ADO.NET entity data model. When I go and add an entity data model, the wizard makes life so much easy that it says go generate it from a database. It will go to my local database, and I've already, I think I just developed it before this session also, so it's preloaded it with my database object names, and it says that hey, I'm going to map it to this name. So it basically tries to give me an entity name. All of you familiar with the ADO.NET entity framework? He'll be talking about entity 4 also, which is interesting, right? But this we are sticking on to ADO.NET entity, the older version, and we are go ahead and pick them up. We will allow pluralization, makes nomenclature so much simpler, and this will give me a representation of various, so let's close this, classes which are available in my database, and if you see this is all is it available. So there is a table called player type, there is a table called match, teams, players, and finally points. Okay, very basic table of IPL, and then there's some basic foreign key relationship between all of these. So in a real scenario, if you go back to the models, you might have data from multiple entity frameworks, right? You might have from multiple databases, you might want to create an enterprise kind of a thing. So you will basically pull out data from different databases or data sources that you might have, and finally you will build your concise data model out of it. What do I mean by concise data model? You will go and say, I want to implement factory method, some repository method, and then say, I want to formulate my model based on a particular repository method, pull all these data and write your code. So your data output could be an I enumerable or I conglomeration, I queryable of these multiple data models, all right. So that is your real data model class. Simplicity of this session, we will assume our entities give us our data model. So we'll directly start coding with our entities. And just want to make it clear, this might not be your production code, right? You might want to create a data model or a repository class around this, which will be your access to your controller. Currently, my access to my controller will be directly from my EDMX or .cs file. Okay. So this said, I have now got an access to my database. My model has an access. If you open up this designer class, which is my EDMX class, you will see all the wrapper classes. These are the various models, and you will see multiple entities which map to the various table names. So there is, the name of it is IPL T20 model, and then you will have these various name spaces. Let's go and so there is one called match, there is one called point, one called player. So these are all my class wrappers of these tables. So which means that I can have a class, I can access the various tuples and the columns of the players using this component, right? And also there will be context, basically data context, ADO.NET data services. These contexts will be created which will do the CRUD operations to access on these entities. That's the basis or basic ADO.NET entity framework thing. So when I go back to the controllers and I want to go and create one controller, so I'm saying create new controller, and I'm going and saying let's go create a Teams controller. Again new with MVC3, for all those of you are on MVC2, this might be interesting. Currently you have multiple options, previously it was not available. You can do a grassroots level empty controller, sit and write the full code, or you can go and say, hey, use entity framework. Otherwise, just give me stubs for the CRUD operations, I will write the code for the CRUD. So here, since we already have an EF, we are going to use the entity framework, which then enables or asks for multiple things. What does it ask? First, it asks what is the model, because once you want to use Visual Studio, it will tightly bind, the controller has to emit a model to your view so that the view will tightly integrate to the model and display the parameters or the features of that model, all right. So it will then ask what is the model. So all our models are not available here. What do you think? I think we have not built the solution. So let's do it one more time. So here when I add Teams controller and select entity framework and open up the model, I have multiple models here. So there is the model called team. So I'm selecting the team model. There is a data context class. What is this? I'm selecting IPL T20 here. I just wanted to pause a minute and understand this template. What does this template do? It basically says, hey, create a controller for me. The controller needs a data context to access the model. What is the data context? IPL T20 is the data context that it is accessing, because that will have all the internal models. It might have matches, players, etc. It has all the data context classes or access for accessing all these models. So that is your higher level data context class. It also says, hey, I'm fine, I have the data context, now I can write an HTTP query to fetch the data. The fetch data will be of a particular type. What model type it should be, because I want to associate that view to that model, because views have to be, it's not necessary they have to be, but when you're using this framework to say, using this option of mapping with entity framework, you're saying that I have this tight integration between my controller, model and the view. So the view has the model which it needs to work on, otherwise it can immediately throw an error if you're trying to write something else. So and in this code I'm saying I need a team model on that view. If I say add, it will automatically generate the controller and the views for me. So if you see here, I will have a controller with the same name as Teams controller, all right. It will have index, which is your default page, and then it will have multiple operations, details, create, edit. It will have, one will be a get, one will be a post. So there will be these options created. So these are the tags which you can override and say that I want this action to be performed. And then if you go back to the views, there will be a folder called teams. So the nomenclature team controller will try to go to the folder called teams, and it does, these are the various operations which have been asked by. So if you say a delete thing is returning a view of team, there will be a corresponding view called delete.cshtml. Are you all with me? All right. So if you go and run this, if you see, we would have then got these CRUD operations directly in place. So I think this. So I can go to my teams here, and so I have my teams displayed here. I can go and say delete a particular team. I can go to details. It then displays the details view. So if you see, it goes teams controller, go to the action called details and display whichever, this is how the URI has been designed, display the first item. You can go back to the list, and when I say details here, it inherently will display the second item here. So it just maps on the URI what it needs to fetch or do any CRUD operation for that matter. It's basic MVC3 application and Razor. If you go back to the Razor syntax of details, if you see, very similar to the way we coded in the beginning, this is a code block, so they would have written some code there, generated and then you go ahead and actually display various components using handlers. Better still, if you go to index here, you will actually see there is nothing called a for each loop, etc. There is a for each, nothing called a table. They would have written a for each loop and actually created that grid view. There is nothing called a grid view here. It is actually displayed using like a repeater or something that we would have written in a classical. So it's very close to if you work with the ASP days, it's little close to that. Might be a lot of questions which you might ask at the end of the session, but yeah, it helps to directly transition from here to that. If you want to do grid view, there is a helper called WebGrid. You have to use that helper. We will also see how we can use helpers. So then you can do away with this for each and try to use something else. But that's internally that WebGrid would have got something like this. So that's what I'm saying. So let's go add another controllers similarly. So here I'm adding a controller next called say match. Let's also match here and then say add, displays multiple matches. At this point, we might also want to have a link that page which will need to be added in the layout.cshtml. So let's go and add these action links for, say, we did teams, we said match, and it's the index is the action which needs to be called in both cases, default action, and the controller names are teams and matches. So then you have it right here. So I can go to teams and then it will route to the teams. You can go to match. So it's matches versus match, I think. So it displays the matches basically. Then we can go ahead and now add an empty controller and see how we can write bits of code. So let's add a controller called points, all right, and this time let's add it as an empty controller. So what does it basically give me? It gives me a blank controller. If you go to the views, it doesn't create any views for me. See, if you see here, there are no views created for this points, and it just gives me one default action index, returns a view which doesn't even exist for now. So firstly, we need to go and create views for this, right? So let's go to the views and add a view. Need to add a folder because it will search for that name. I said everything routing happens through names, and the name of the controller was points controller. I'm adding a folder called points, and within that folder I need to add a CS_HTML file which is a view of the type index because the name of the action method was index. All right. So I'm adding a view called index, right, and then I can choose to strongly type it or not type it. So when I see here, it's a razor view. When I say strongly type it, it will now ask me what is the model I want, what is the model I'm looking for. I can go and then say, is there a point model, and say this is the model I want. And also there's something called scaffolding. I'm going to leave it at empty, but if you can do multiple, say index, details, list, it will do that formatting for you. It will give you the grid, it will do the, give you that CRUD operation for you automatically for the UI. But I can now, for now I can say empty and I can say add. So then it adds a view. How do we know it's tightly bound to points? It's just this single line which says, hey, this is the model that is bound to this view. You can directly delete it, change it. So templating is different. It's not that once you create a template, you can't change it here and all. So it's as simple as that. So in this view, let's go and add a bit of code here. What am I adding here? If you see, I'm including the layout so that I want it to match my master page. And also, how many of you know of view data? Okay, obviously the folks who know MVC, right? So there is this concept of view bag and view data, which with MVC3, it's more used as a view bag. So the idea is view bag is if you want controller to send some data from the controller to your views, which is not a part of the model. So you can have dynamic transition of data from your controller to this by setting up your view bag items. Thing is, you can go to the controller and say add view bag dot something, and you can retrieve that view bag item here. So they've just tried to set a view bag item that is not required also. And then finally, if you see, try to use a helper called render chart. All right. This render chart helper can be written in a separate CS_HTML file like twittergoodies.cshtml. Simplicity of the demo, we've written it right here. This helper has been written right here. All right. So this helper is just rendering a chart. So what does it do? It creates an HTML placeholder and it finally says create an image, and the URL for that image is url.action. Razor code url.action will try to go to a controller within the same context, which is the controller, which is the points controller, and search for an action method or a function called chart. Are you all with me? Yeah? So that's what it does. But if it goes to the points controller here, there is no function called chart, right? Or there's no action method called chart. So let's go ahead and create that action method. All right. Now this action method is called, what does this action method do? It says return a view. What will view do? It will go within the folder called points and search for chart.cshtml. So we need to create a view for chart.cshtml, right? So let's go create a view and call it chart and add this view here. I'm going to delete all this. This is a helper code, so I'm just going to write what chart I want to display. So I'm going to basically try to create a chart. Internally, if you see here, there is a component called new chart. So you might think, be tempted to consider this as a server control, which is available for you to build charts. Yes, very close to that, but these are all internal helpers. They are not called as helpers, but they are basically called as controls. These are controls from Razor itself so that you can display certain components. It's kept very open because you can develop your own control or own helper which people can use as a control to do multiple operations, etc. So then I build this and I just put in a particular chart with a particular item. Say I put some values here and then I go and build my page. When I run it here, let's go back to my points.cs or my index.cs HTML. So this is what I have. That's fine. Let's also add it in layout so that we have a handle to that. So let's add it as, what do we want? Points and index, and we also want it as points. I think the nomenclature is all right. So here, if you click on points, it should display this control. What is actually happening when I click on points, the URI, it's going to the points controller and it's displaying the index view of the points controller. So effectively it's the index view. But this is a image source which is action linked to within the same controller points, it's action linked to an action of charts. The charts is routing to a view which is displaying the chart. Are you all with me? Okay. So you can convert this to multiple charts. Say I can make it a bar chart and display. I would immediately get. You saw I didn't compile it. I just saved and built it. So it's as simple as that. So these are helpers internally for in Razor using MVC3. Any questions at this point? Yes, yes. In fact, Harish Ranganathan did a session in TechEd in Bangalore. So if you go to that TechEd URL, there is a session thing. I think videos should also have been out. TechEd videos should be out now. One dedicated session is there, wherein you can have a single application. One page will be ASPX, one page will be a MVC app. So that is possible. Basically, your ASCX is your at render partial or render section if you see. So in your layout.cs HTML, there are two components. One is your render body. If you see, there is the render body which is under the main, it will be the content holder. ASCX can be used using render sections, which in this page is not used, but you can say at render section. So, and you will give a section name. So that will be a controller name. Yes, everything is a CSHTML file and everything is ad based. Yeah. So it is actually very simple and straightforward. So you have the script folder wherein your basic jQuery and JavaScript components are there. You can reference the JavaScript right outside this HTML page within like this source you see. You can reference that here and use it in your code. It's the normal markup which you use. It's not your ASP.NET Ajax control. This is your normal Ajax and JavaScript and jQuery. That's a difference. That is a wrapper over web forms. This is native components. Good to go? Yeah? So let's go back to the PowerPoint and see what we saw. I think we saw a bit of these views. We saw a bit of helpers. Next is something called global filters that we are going to see. So you might have things like you want to do error page displaying. Any error comes, you want it to be to a very customized error page. Otherwise, you will have to do catch and add this error page in every page, things that you have issues with, right? So the previous MVC2, you had to actually include that page in every code part that you write. There was no concept of global filters. You can add filters at the global level. You have to add filters at the action level, right? Now you can directly add it at a global level. So let's first see the demo before we see the deck and see how we can do that. So what do I mean by that global level? Let's open global.asx.cs file and you will see this thing called register global filters, right? It's a global filter connections. Once you register this, you can add global filters like this. This is a automatically handle error attribute filter which has been added. So what will this do? It will add this filter to this page, and whatever this handle in this file, I am going to just write system.writeLine, basically display certain components of CPU utilization, browser type, certain debug infos on the screen, and apply this at the global level so that every page is now being able to display that component. So let's go and add that part. If you see here, I think there is some error, I think. All right. So add system.diagnostics, and then it goes ahead and inherits from this. This is important because I want to eventually add it as an action filter, right? So it inherits from this action filter attribute class, and then it goes and does a bunch of things like go ahead, starts a watch, and then says try to get specific results and just format it on HTTP response.write, and I want the server name, I want the browser name, I think colors can be set, whatever be it, and then route it to these values right here and display the time you took to load that page. Basically start watch will display how much time that page took to display. Okay, now simple to add this as a global filter. You can go to filters and say filters.add new, and then say debug info attribute, which we added right here. It understands that IntelliSense actually gives because I've added it as a action filter handler, right? So then I build it. And since that global filter is just doing write, we should be able to see writes or just displays. There are no checks on it, right? So if you see on every page, this data will be displayed. If you go back to your Teams page, you will have your debug info. It's been applied at the global filter level. Interesting? So then you have it here. The first page probably isn't loading because the Twitter handlers are taking time to load their components, after which your debug info is going to come up. So here's what it goes. Says multiple parameters. So you can add filters at the global level, again with MVC3 tools update in April. So this is something that came up right now as well. One last thing which I'd like to show here is, I think there was a little bit of confusion about this view bag, right? So let's go and add a view bag component. Let me go to the points controller and add in the index component, let me add a view bag here. So I can say view bag dot, what do I want to pass from this controller to the action? Let's say I want to pass title and then say tally scores for IPL. So this is my view bag data that I have. Now this is a dynamic view bag because this can be specified on the fly, right? You don't need to specify the data bound before. You can go back to this index and then go up here, and then I don't want this as index, and then I can go up here and say if I need to display view bag, also at is my only handler. So I can then say at view bag dot, whatever is the view bag component that you added can be displayed. So now if you go back and take a look at the points page, you would see that it's been displayed there. See, now we got from index, we got this right here. Previously you had to add it as a view data and it had to be data matched before. So let's go back. Any questions? So we can say, we can set filters for all the controllers and all actions at one level under global.ascx.cs, and this is how you basically add a particular filter. And in dynamic viewback, we said that we can directly access the viewback dot title dot directly properties can be directly mapped. It is dynamically bound and as simple as just writing @symbol with viewback to access it. So the good resource points will be ASP.NET/MVC/MVC3. I think this has all the latest videos. Scott Guthrie's blog is another thing, Phil Hack's blog. Bunch of things are there. MVC3 I think is majorly recommended if you're doing web programming from Microsoft also. Say that MVC3 is recommended with Razor. So if you go to these blogs and take a look at what are the recommendations, what is being propagated, they'll say that MVC3 is something to stay and invest upon, or more so a view engine which will bind it, with UI completely clean. That Razor is also being pushed for. So I think with that, we come to the end of today's session. If you have questions, we can take. Otherwise, we'll do the next session on code first programming.
Is there any advantage for Razor apart from easy development?
So Razor, apart from easy development is one. That's again subjective, right? You're a web form developer. You think it's very easy to unlearn something and relearn. So it's for new developers for sure. Okay, that's there. Easy is very subjective because you will have your server controls. In fact, people have asked me the other question saying that now I'm so comfortable with my server controls, now I have to sit and write long codes, it's a pain. So I wouldn't buy that easy development part, although it makes easy transition from code and markup with an @symbol, that is understandable. But apart from that, the rendering is faster performance wise because it's interpreted and not compiled. And even deployment parameters, all you have to do is ensure the DLL. So if you want a hoster, you just say, please include this DLL on your GAC or something. It makes deployment also faster. And most importantly, Razor is combined with other Microsoft technologies, like I'm not sure if you heard of Webmetrics. Any of you heard of Webmetrics? Yeah, a few of you, wonderful. So Webmetrics is a very lightweight development, non-Visual Studio kind of an enterprise development tool for jumpstart developers, more so for PHP, non-Microsoft developers who can just very intuitively develop. So Razor is kind of very intuitive. So that's something which is also for them. It's useful that way. It's also useful for Microsoft Light Switch. If you have heard, that's also, that you can tell us a lot about all that. So that is another thing where Razor can be used. And it is compatible to Azure. You can develop in Razor and push it to the cloud. So you can do a bunch of things like that. Yes.
I think Razor View Engine is slower because it's an additional wrapper on MVC2 or ASPX engine, right?
No, actually it is an additional engine on MVC2, correct? That means basically your .NET platform, it's a wrapper on that. But once you deploy your application, if you see there is no compilation, right? It will directly go to the DLL, get the response and display it right on page. There is nothing like, I'm not sure if there is this server postbacks, etc. No, the question is isn't it performance more slower in Razor?
But even web forms are just in time compiled. It's not completely compiled. It is just in time compiled.
Yes. Yeah.
So web forms, the code behind is compiled at runtime, and the ASPX page is compiled at the design just in time. So when you run the web forms page, your code behind is pre-compiled. Bin folder DLL file is pre-compiled already. And the first time you make a request to ASPX page, at runtime it compiles that page, right? So ASPX page is basically just-in-time compilation, right? The difference between Razor, so Razor advantage, one is the helpers available from the community. You get a lot of these helpers for Razor, which is not there in web forms. No matter how much we can create controls like grid view or anything, right? There is always new stuff that's coming out from the community, like Twitter handler, chart control, etc. These things are not from Microsoft. This is the community. So Help Us is one good example of why Razor is more powerful. And Razor as such is faster in comparison because the HTML is cleaner. If you have to go and do the transition of between ASPX and Razor, if you show the third or fourth slide, I think, right? The number of lines of code on ASPX and Razor is totally different. I'm not comparing web forms and Razor here. I'm saying MVC2 with ASPX and MVC3 with Razor. The number of lines of hopping around is very huge in ASPX, right? Razor is much faster compared to ASPX web forms and comparatively better when it compares to MVC with ASPX. I'm not saying it outperforms everybody. Today, if you ask me, web forms are slower by nature because of the view state, because of the just-in-time compilation, because of many other attributes like page lifecycle. The whole model of web forms is pretty slow compared to MVC, right? And MVC plus ASPX is faster. Razor plus MVC is little faster than MVC plus ASPX. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
The MVC ASPX, does it work like the web form? I mean, you just showed the Razor today, right? There was another option, ASPX also. It is similar to the web form?
Very
Yes,
similar
it is
because
same.
the DLL is the same, right? The DLL is the same. So DLL model is the same. Yeah, you want to add something?
No. It is the same reason.
Same. And there's no design view in this. There's no design view in MVC.
You can go to design view, right?
No.
this
CS
is so
HTML
true.
doesn't have
CSHTML
a...
doesn't have it currently, yeah. So on change, you will handle using JavaScript. There is no if not is post back in MVC. That's not there. And there is no thing like view state where data is stored. View data is there, very similar to view state. But you have to put something explicitly there. It cannot go automatically and sit like a view state there. I think one of the benefits you will see is the cleaner HTML that's generated compared to web form. Web forms you will see this big chunk of code called view state. That's not there in MVC. And MVC will make you do all the operations. So there are a lot of advantages. You can see that search engine friendly URLs, right? All these things there. You can have multiple URLs for every request. I can do much more things in MVC, which is not possible in web forms there. Web forms has its own advantages. If you want to do rapid development, web forms is actually very great. And if you want to rely on third-party controls like Telerik or RAD or whatever it is, they have already built controls, huge control ecosystem is already there. So if you want to do those things, web forms is the best suited approach. But
And
as
web
such,
forms
MVC is
are also
faster.
good for enterprise kind of
Enterprise kind of application, SharePoint development. SharePoint is still on web forms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question? Yeah. Okay. By default, MVC projects come with an unit testing module as well. That's one of the advantages of MVC, which is test-driven development. That's what they say, right? You need to write a class. So, for example, if you write a class called person, you need to write the person test class that
So
will
I
write
can
it there.
do this create unit test
Yes,
project
you can
right
do that,
outside.
right? That actually makes it much simpler. Yeah.
Web application project can convert into the
Yeah, so that's what she answered earlier. There are two ways to do it. One is you can manually add MVC file after adding some configuration changes, or there is a NuGet package called as add MVC to web forms. Like I showed the NuGet package. She was also showing the NuGet packages, right? There is a NuGet package by Scott Hanselman called as add MVC to web forms. If you search and add that NuGet package, it will automatically add all the assemblies required and make your project MVC ready. It's not doing conversion. It's making your project MVC ready. After that, you can add new controllers and views. It will not go and convert your existing code to MVC. It will not do that. You want to add something? So output caching is anyway there even earlier. So output caching is there as a part of the core.NET API. So if you look at the core.NET, right, there is .NET framework. On top of it, there is ASP.NET Runtime, which supports membership, caching, and all these things. And on top of it, you have two flavors, web forms and MVC now. So output caching is already there. What probably you're asking is around the new caching features of ASP.NET 4.2, which is there. Right? That's actually enhanced. You can do a lot of things. We'll talk about it a little later. But caching is already there. Yeah. Any questions on Razor, MVC? We're working on that, no? Next project we'll do it, no?
Actually, we've not got any info about it also.
Yeah. Actually, the thing is that Razor is basically HTML and markup. That's the whole idea. There is no control there. If there is no control, what is the point of having a design? If you have a control like grid view, you can drag and drop it. It will do all the things automatically for you. If there is no control architecture, even having simple design view doesn't help you in any
No,
ways.
but your design view is basically your save and refresh, right? That's your design. You don't even need to recompile. All you have to do, They design you after you do something. You
But like a master page, the layout page would have a design page, where I at least.
so that design you can just see it on the browser is what I'm saying. There is
Yeah. Yeah, and also few controls, right? You can make some few controls and few view state
then make
available
it lot
option
more
and make it like a web
bulkier.
form application. Yeah. Which one?
no MVC2 is using ASPX, right? So ASPX comes with design view. Here also, if I had created this project as an ASPX project, I will see the design view. That has nothing to do with MVC2 or 3. It has something to do with the Razor or ASPX. So that's the thing.
Why because there is a different experiment like ASPX, so that we can easily distinguish. Now it is all CSS.
No. So partial HTML. You want to talk about it? Partial CSHTML files.
No, but he's saying that's correct. He's saying all the suffixes are always CSHTML. We don't know whether it's a partial or a whole.
It is a partial page, you can see that. No, if you go to the shared view, you see that there is a view start.cshtml and there is a logon partial. That's a CSHTML file, but it's a logon, it's a partial file. So there ASPX means full file, ASCX means part of the file. Here it finds out from the partial keyword in the file name, not on the extension. So logon is actually a partial view. If you open that logon, it's a partial view actually. It's a login interface that is being used everywhere. You can see there is no more HTML there. It's only all code there, correct? And the logon partial is used in the layout.cshtml. If you go to layout.cshtml,
Yes.
it's used there. That's the way it is separated here.
See,
The extension is irrelevant because anyway the end users will only see index or teams or anything like that. They won't see .cshtml or any other thing, right? Because the extension is actually irrelevant. For developers, we need to know because we are deploying it there. But for end users, extension is not there. Yeah.
Correct.
So it doesn't make sense, no?
minimum platform requirement for
For
this?
deploying or for development? Deploying, it needs to have .NET 4.0 installed and MVC3 runtime installed, or you can do a add deployable dependency also. And
you need basically database, no backend for anything. So SQL or
Windows Server,
whatever.
Windows 2003, 2008, everything.
IIS,
IIS.
basic, that's the basic. It's the DLL,
It's a DLL there.
system.web.mbc.razor.dll. So
Actually,
we'll go on to the next session.
Yeah, the Q&A is already started.
So okay, the next session is about code first, but do you want a break?
There is a break. There's a tea break now.
Okay, let's do one thing. The time is 4:46 now. Let's have a 5-minute break.
I had already, thanks.
So let's come back so that we can also probably give back time, no? We'll